Nobody expected this. Not Doug. Not Chris. Not even Chantel. When the courtroom doors opened and Chris Webber walked in, the room froze. Gasps echoed, and camera flashes lit up like lightning. Sitting quietly in the front row was Doug Christie, 50 years old, wearing a navy blue blazer. His hands were clenched, resting on his knees. His eyes locked on the man he never imagined he'd have any family ties with. Except, now, it looked like he might. Let's rewind. Doug had been Chantel's dad since the very beginning. He changed her diapers, helped her learn to ride a bike, cheered at every basketball game until his voice was gone. People always said she had his focus, her mom Jackie's energy, and a talent on the court you couldn't teach. But there was always something Doug couldn't quite put his finger on. A strange feeling he ignored until the truth started revealing itself on its own. It all began with something innocent. Chantel, in her early 20s, took part in a school project that involved a simple DNA kit. Just a fun assignment, nothing serious. But when the results came back, something didn't add up. Doug's name wasn't anywhere in her paternal matches. In fact, the results showed no connection at all. What did show up? A cousin. And then the last name Webber. At first, she didn't want to believe it. But the more she thought about it, the more things made sense. Chris Webber was a name she'd heard her whole life, an NBA legend, a Sacramento icon. Weirdly, Jackie always got quiet when his games came on. That had always felt strange. Now it didn't seem like a coincidence. Chantel began digging. She searched through photo albums and old boxes. Then she found something, an old photo of her mom, young and standing near the Michigan bench during the Fab Five era. Even more shocking, behind a faded birthday card, she discovered a handwritten letter from Chris himself. One sentence stood out like a fire alarm. "You did the right thing not coming forward. We can't go public." That was it. Chantel didn't lose her cool. She didn't yell or cry. She made a plan. She retook the test, confirmed the results with Chris's relatives, and went to court not to get attention or money but because she needed the truth. Doug had no idea what was about to happen. He walked into court thinking he was there for some paperwork. Just showing support. What he wasn't prepared for was a file full of DNA results placed in front of him, proof that he wasn't Chantel's biological father. Then Chris Webber was called to the stand. Jackie sat still, almost frozen. And when the judge announced that the results showed a 99.97% match to Chris Webber, Jackie collapsed in the middle of the courtroom. Paramedics rushed in. Reporters snapped photos. Doug just sat there, completely numb. His life had been torn apart in seconds. Chris stepped forward, took an oath, and admitted everything. He said he and Jackie were young and careless. When she got pregnant, she told him not to worry. She had it handled. But what she didn't tell either man was the truth, that the child was his. This wasn't just a painful accident. It was something more deliberate. More letters surfaced. Some were sent, some hidden, and some never finished. One letter said the baby wasn't Chris's, written to confuse, maybe even protect herself. Doug had raised Chantel with love. Chris had missed the chance to be a father. And Chantel was the one left trying to make sense of it all. Doug didn't scream. He didn't storm out. He left the courthouse quietly, not saying a word, not to Jackie, not to Chris, not even to Chantel. That night, Chantel called. He didn't answer. His voicemail still sounded the same, calm, loving, but the man behind the voice had vanished. Jackie ended up in the hospital, supposedly due to exhaustion. But those in the courtroom knew it wasn't just physical. It was guilt, overwhelming and unavoidable. Then, more information came out. Chris had mentioned something small but serious. "She once told me the baby wasn't mine after all." That led to a full investigation. The court requested every letter, email, journal, or note that could shed light on what Jackie knew and when she knew it. What they found changed everything. Over a dozen handwritten letters, some to Chris, some to Doug, and one just to herself, painted a painful picture. In one note, Jackie warned Chris to keep his distance, telling him, "You're about to sign the biggest deal of your life. Don't let a kid ruin that." In another, she admitted to Doug, "You make it easy to pretend." Maybe too easy. But the most heartbreaking one? It was scribbled in the margin of an old photo album. "I thought I could fake it until it became real. But every time I look at her, I see Chris. And I see the lie growing with her." Doug was brought back to court. He read the letters silently. When he looked up, he simply said, "I was never a husband. I was her cover. I was her safe option and I didn't even know it." Chris sat nearby, stunned. He hadn't just missed birthdays, he'd missed a whole life. A life he could have had if only the truth hadn't been hidden. And Chantel? She watched in silence. She didn't scream. She didn't run out. She just sat still, processing the years of secrets that shaped her identity. In the end, the judge ruled that Chris was the biological father. Doug was released from any legal obligations. But the damage wasn't about custody or money. It was about trust completely shattered. One final question remained: would Jackie be charged? Because this wasn't just a mistake. It was deception, intentional and damaging. And that can be a crime. In a quiet room at a mediation center days later, Jackie, Chris, and Doug sat down together for the first time. Chantel chose not to attend. She had said everything she needed to in court. Jackie brought a thick folder. Inside were all the letters, the full story. She said, "I don't expect forgiveness. But I won't run from it." Doug replied, "You didn't lie to protect us. You lied to control us." Jackie cried, offered to remove herself from any future inheritance, and said Chantel deserved everything she could give. Chris didn't say much, but he made one thing clear. "I missed out on her life. But I'll be there now if she wants me." Doug stood up and left quietly. His final words? "You didn't just lie to me. You lied to her. And that's what I'll never forgive." In the weeks that followed, Doug filed for separation. Chris and Chantel slowly began spending time together privately, away from the spotlight. Jackie vanished from public life. And Chantel? She chose peace. She went back to school, started therapy, and began the slow journey of becoming herself without the lies, without the weight of others' choices. Because for her, family was never just about DNA. It was always about the truth. And just like that, the truth that had been buried for over 20 years finally came to the surface. Doug Christie didn't storm out of the courtroom. He didn't break down in front of cameras. He just walked away from everything he once thought was real: his marriage, his fatherhood, his entire identity as the man who raised a child he believed was his own. Not because he didn't love Chantel, but because that love had been used against him by the people closest to him. Chris Webber, on the other hand, didn't walk in as a villain. He walked in as someone who had also been misled, denied the chance to be a father to his own daughter. And now, after years of silence and uncertainty, he's trying to step up and be part of Chantel's life if she allows it. But the real center of this story isn't Doug or Chris. It's Chantel. She's the one who lived her entire life in the middle of a lie. Raised in a house built on a secret, told who her father was without ever knowing the full truth. And when she found it, she didn't run, didn't hide, and didn't try to fix anyone else's mess. She simply chose to move forward with clarity and courage. Now, she's working on healing. Quietly. Privately. No drama, no headlines, just therapy, school, and trying to figure out who she really is without all the lies. As for Jackie, well, the public eye may never look at her the same way again. She built an entire brand around being the strong wife, the mother, the TV personality with the perfect family. But now the truth has shown us something else: manipulation, deception, and control disguised as love. Her silence, her choices, and her lies left deep wounds, ones that might never fully heal. So what happens next? There are still legal consequences to come. Doug's legal team isn't stopping, and Jackie could be charged for what the court is now calling intentional paternity fraud. This case might even change how the law handles these kinds of betrayals in the future. Raised in a house built on a secret, told who her father was without ever knowing the full truth. And when she found it, she didn't run, didn't hide, and didn't try to fix anyone else's mess. She simply chose to move forward with clarity and courage. Now, she's working on healing. Quietly. Privately. No drama, no headlines, just therapy, school, and trying to figure out who she really is without all the lies. As for Jackie, well, the public eye may never look at her the same way again. She built an entire brand around being the strong wife, the mother, the TV personality with the perfect family. But now the truth has shown us something else: manipulation, deception, and control disguised as love. Her silence, her choices, and her lies left deep wounds, ones that might never fully heal. So what happens next? There are still legal consequences to come. Doug's legal team isn't stopping, and Jackie could be charged for what the court is now calling intentional paternity fraud. This case might even change how the law handles these kinds of betrayals in the future.